Welcome back guys to another video. Previously we were working on the basics of creating a unit test, and then on this video we're going to be covering some of the principles of writing a better test classes. For those who are a little bit advanced or know a bit about writing a test function, including the principles, they could probably tell that the way I wrote my test functions, it was probably not the best way of writing them, even though they work. But in terms of other people or testers or people who write code, it was going to be probably difficult for them to understand what is actually happening. That's why there are specific principles on which there are guidelines on how to write a better test functions. That's what we're going to be doing on this video. So first of all, I'm going to be talking about the name convention. When you name your test function, there's a specific way on which you have to name it, on which the first thing that you need to include is to ensure what the function does, and that the second of you need to include what it returns, what is expected out of it. That's pretty much of it. So for this video, I don't need to do to apply what I'm talking about on every function, because if I can do it on one function, I can pretty much do it on all of the functions. So I'm going to be removing other functions just for time purposes. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, now we're going to be dealing with add test. Okay, for the naming convention, we're going to have to figure a way of writing appropriate name for this function, on which anyone who sees this function should be able to understand what is actually happening within the code without actually going inside the code and then trying to read each and every line. I'm going to do it just now. So the appropriate name will be, first of all, we are doing what? We are adding two numbers. That means we take two numbers and then we enter them, and then from there we return the sum of those values. So I would say, for my case, I will probably name it and say, I expect it to return what? A sum of two numbers. Yeah. I do believe from anyone who sees this function, they should understand that, okay, this function, all it does is supposed to just return a sum of two numbers. Meaning if it fails, that means it could not return a sum of two numbers, meaning it couldn't add, if you understand. Now we're going to be moving to another principles. So I'm going to have to try to move a bit first so that I don't make the videos long. The second part will be AAA principles, on which it's about arranging, it's about act, and then the last one is to assert. So I'm going to provide those ones. Let's arrange, act, and then the last one will be assert. Arrange is where you group your variables that you're going to use during the test, or you do some assigning and all those kind of things. Then we move to act, on which act is where you do you process your text. And then lastly, your assert is where you check whether the process data is equal to the expectation. Okay, so now let's group this thing. To group this thing, I can see that this is where I do some processing of data, on which I add two values. So this falls under what? Under act. In this case, there's no part where we put variables that we're going to use during the act. All right, we just do the act from the variables that we got from the arguments or the values. And then lastly, we do assert, on which we check if, however, this part is equal to this part. Now, if you check something, we used first plus second, on which it is not really recommended to do what? To create any operations or some calculations within your test function, if you understand, so that nothing goes wrong. You should try to avoid that. And then to solve this problem, what I'm going to do, I'm going to provide another data, on which this data is for the expected value. Meaning that first of all, I need to add another argument, on which this argument, what it's going to do is going to be providing the expected value for every test. Now I'm going to call it double expected, and then when I come here, I'm going to remove this thing and then provide expected. And then when we come here, we're going to do expected value will be 40, and then when it comes to this one, will be 20. 20. Okay, this is sorted. So the next one will be in terms of asserting. So you see, we do have one assert in this case. There might be a point where, like, in your mind you think, okay, I need to assert for like more things. Let's say 0 plus 2, something like this. So as you can see, we do have two different asserts. That means we check two things. So if this test fails, it might be confusing, like, what is happening? Like, you'll have to go and check whether was it this one that failed or this one that failed, because I'm pretty sure it's going to result as a test fail. Okay, the best way to resolve this thing is to ensure that if you ever get to the point where, like, you feel like you need to create two assets within one particular test function, it is best to break that function into two parts, ensuring that you only have one asset per function. Simplifies the whole thing. Right. Okay, so that is pretty much it about some of the basic ways of, like, the principles of writing a better test. Now we'll be moving to something called a mock. When you test some specific things, you realize that, like, let's say for example you test class A, right? You want to test the content of class A, but you realize in order to create an object of class A, you need class B, right? That means you're going to have to do what? You're going to have to create a fake class B in order to just provide it to class A so that class A works, and then you test class A. I'm going to do that right now. So to do that, I can just create a class. Let's create a class called A, right? And then this class, you do have a construct, right? And then this constructor, I'm going to make it require class B inside of. So class B. So here I'm going to say it requires B. Requires B. Yeah. So now, as you can see, to instantiate this object, to instantiate an object of type A, you need to provide an object of B. All right. So now this is where mocking comes. So when we mock, we create just an object, just for the purpose of creating an object. So I'm going to be demonstrating that now. So I'm going to be creating a new fact, another test. The naming convention won't be that much. I'll just say mocking, something like this. Okay. Now we're gonna be doing what? Our range, on which in this case, since we're gonna be creating mock, a mock object will be part of our ranges. We're gonna be providing them. We're gonna be creating objects that we're gonna use during the test. So now we're gonna have a range in which the first one will be we have to start with class B, since class A requires class B. So we're gonna say class and then to say B is requesting new. And then I'm gonna say A is requesting new, then provide B. What am I doing wrong here? So let me see. Oh, protection level of, let me just read it. It should be good there. I'm not so sure, but A is requesting A. AB is the next issue. Why did I? Oh, it wasn't, and my cloud list. It was because the constructor was private. I'm sorry that. Okay, so now we can see that A depends on B. So now when you come to the part of A, we're gonna do something of we can say A. Let's just create something for A. Let's say let's create a function called public. Let's say it's failed in this case, on which it will just always return true. Right. So we come here and then we can just import this value. That's equals to array dot is variable. Now, I don't know why when I press tab, it always provides a thing. And then when we come to assert, we always gonna assert. So you can assert true in this case, since we are checking if the value that is being returned is true. So this thing is called a mock. Reason why it's being called a mock is because it's just an object for the purpose of providing it here, if you understand. Because we don't use it anywhere. But I'm going to be moving on to something else now. When we name a mock object, there are two ways of naming a mock object. Is either we can call it a stub or we can call it a mock itself. A stub is a mock object or it's a fake object on which it is not used on the asset, or the value that is being processed from the mock is not used on the asset. So in this case, this thing is called what? Stub B. I'm gonna have to change that. I should have just stub B. Oh, actually, let me just stub B. Yeah. Stub. Yeah. This one is called stub. Reason being is that there's no part where we process something from this function and then use it here. But if however we do it something like this, let's say on class B, right? We do something like this. We create a function. Let's create let's say process my naming convention, which also like this. Yes, let's say true. Let's make our naming convention proper. We have to use capital letter I. Okay. So if we want to make a use of it, okay, now when we explain when do we call it a mock? We call it a mock if we do something like this. Now, let's say it's processed. That means B dot lost. Let me change it to, let me just leave this one as stub B dot, mock Q2. So, mock B, why do I keep making this? So mock will become, it will be mock B dot processed. So since this data or the output of the mock object is gonna be used here, it's processed, and that means this one will also have to say mock B. So this is how we call it a mock, because this data, this object is used here, and then also in terms of asserting, we also use the data being produced by this object. So this is why we call it a mock. Otherwise, thank you for watching, guys. See you in the next upcoming videos. Cheers.